I sure do. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm just going to assume that you can.
We can. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of PowerPoint slides, and then I'm going to show you an actual active demonstration. I'm going to get it all finished in 10 minutes so that Corey doesn't yell at me at the end. So what's going on? What I'm going to talk to you about? I'm going to talk to you about the power of one system solution for field service management. Now, we all know, and we all buy, and we all use NetSuite because it's the one system solution. That is NetSuite's raison d'etre. That is the reason that we love them so much, because everything is in one single solution. Yeah. So now we offer Next Service, which is a brand of Next Technique, offer a field service, a complete end-to-end field service management solution inside of NetSuite. And that takes me to our next strange slide. Whoops, if I get it right. Well, there's me looking a little bit James Bond. But let's get to the slide that I really want you to see, which is this one. Now, take a look at the picture there. There's a lady sitting in a lovely car. This car about 80 years old, I think. And on the side of that car is an air conditioner. Now, it's not a rocket launcher. It is an air conditioner. And I guess the car, in a way, is a metaphor for NetSuite. It's a beautiful car. You know, it drives for it. It's got everything. It's steering wheel and everything. It's all integrated inside, except 80 years ago, they didn't have air conditioners for cars. Car manufacturers did not incorporate the air conditioner. So you had to tack it on the outside. And it worked. It blew cold air into the passenger window, and that poor lady's going to get cold air blown all over her head, and that's great. And maybe the driver got cool, and maybe the kids in the back might have got a little bit of cool air as well, but that's all they had, and so that's what people bought. But you wouldn't do that today, because air conditioning is now fully incorporated in the car, and it works beautifully with all the different systems. And I just put, now the metaphor is the car, the air conditioner is tacked onto the side. You wouldn't do that today. It's the same with field service. Field service solutions for NetSuite, up until recently, have been tacked on. They're not incorporated inside of NetSuite. They're not a part of the system. They usually run through an API, yeah, and they're clunky. That's dead. We've gotten rid of that with a built-in system. So your project management, manufacturing, CRM, bills, financing, payroll, inventory, this field service solution talks to absolutely every single part of NetSuite without you having to do anything. If you buy it, it integrates directly in, bundles in, and it's ready to go. So that takes me, well, here's proof that it does work. Okay, if you go to SDN and take a look, there's buckets and buckets of 5-star ratings for us. Go and check that out yourself. There's plenty there. And these, as anyone would know, you know, you can't pay people to go and give you a 5-star rating. They have to go and do it of their own volition. And this is what our customers think of the field service solution that we offer. So what does it do? What does field service do? For those that don't have field service businesses, a brief explanation before I do an end-to-end demo, and I've got to do it in about 5 minutes. Installs and commissioning. Let's think of something that you install, like an elevator or a lift. Think about that. You sell it, and then you've got to install it. So you've got to send a whole bunch of people out into the field to install it, and they need to record what they did when they got there, right? Record their hours. You need to be able to then, and think about this also, you sell an elevator, that's not the only money you're going to make from selling it. You want the maintenance contracts on that, because they're heavily regulated, because people get in and out of elevators, and the government wants to ensure that people are safe, right? So if you get the maintenance contract for that as well, that's the sweetest plum. That's where the revenue comes into your business after you've sold that asset. Warranties, of course, you need to look after them. The elevator comes with a warranty, and so if it get stuck between 2 floors, you're going to need to send somebody out to fix it at no charge. And then what happens if after a couple of years the elevator gets stuck between a couple of floors? Well, guess what? You need to be able to do a break fix, what's called a break fix, or send somebody out quickly to repair that. Now, how does that all work? How does that work in NetSuite? Well, bang, here it is. Here's Next Service installed into NetSuite. And look at the dashboards. The information that you can see on this screen right now is coming from Next Service. It's telling you how many jobs have got open, what the close rate is, how your business in the field is working, and we'll see the app in a minute. And all this information, most of this information is coming in from mobile apps, which are in fact also attached to NetSuite. There is no external source of data. So guys, let's think about this too. When you buy software, when anyone buys software, right, you need, particularly field service software, it's got to be easy to use, otherwise no one's going to use it. Yeah, you've got to be able to create jobs quickly. And here's how you create a job. One single screen, one simple screen to create a job where you visit once or where you visit 28 times over 3 years. You don't have to do a lot of complex things anymore because we've automated the heck out of it, so that if you know the time that you want a contract to start and the time that you want it to end, Next Service goes and produces all of the tasks that you need to go out and then service that equipment. In this particular case, it's quarterly, it's in quarterly as per local state regulations across a year. 1, 2, 3, 4 times you've got to go out there. So you produce a job on a single screen, always a single simple screen. And what happens to that? What happens? I mean, how does a contractor or your employee know to go out there? How can you see that work? How can you be across what is going out onto the field? It's easy. Here is a drag and drop scheduler. Now look at this, everybody. Look up here. This is NetSuite. If you haven't ever seen this before and you're thinking to yourself, there is no way this is NetSuite. It's not possible. Well, NetSuite didn't write it, we did, but we wrote it inside of NetSuite. And with Next Service, you can see where everybody is down here on the map. Where's my team? Where are they all? How many jobs have I got? Where are they? And then you can see all of the work that they're doing for you up here. So who's busy? Who's not busy? What jobs haven't been scheduled yet? There's all this drag and drop over here. And look at this, guys. You drag and you drop. You want somebody else to attend this job? You drag and you drop. It's that simple. It is not difficult to use. Can't see enough information? No problem. Right click. And there is everything about that particular job that you created over here just a second ago. Everything runs onto a drag and drop scheduler, which you can filter by person, by region, by customer, so that you are constantly and always aware of everything going out in the field. And yes, we are tracking your workers. Yes, we are. This is how we can see them right here. Right, there's Diane Rose. She's out there fixing the elevator I was talking about just a second ago. Right, there she is. And you want to see what she can see? Do you want to see what she can see on her mobile app? You just right-click this, bang, and up it comes. Now you're looking at what she can see in the field when she does her work. All the information that you've put in, most of which is automatically sent to her, is shown to you, and here I am emulating her phone. What does Diane need to do if she wants to start a job? She clicks the job. She hits the start button. We record the time, and then she gets to work. Can she do checklists in the field? Yes, she can. Does it matter what kind of checklist? Absolutely not. We digitize whatever it is that the checklists are that you use in your field service operation, and we put them inside this app. And again, everyone look at this. We don't expose this on the app, of course, but here when I'm emulating, we can see we are still in NetSuite. But because it's an app, it still works even if you're offline. line. So if you go into a little downstairs compartment where you don't have any internet, Diane just keeps working as normal, and when she gets back online, we automatically send that information through and back to NetSuite. So she can do checklists. We can force her to do checklists. In fact, if you have a look right there, I'm going to make her do this. I'm going to make her put a signature on, and then I can go ahead and save that. Where are we now? Now we can see time. She can record her time. She can record inventory in the field, right? Here are her job instructions. She has to do certain things before she can move to the next step. So we're enforcing that Diane is doing all of her safety checks before she goes and enters her time for labor and puts that in and says, right, she's done with that, and then she can go and complete her work. That's a really fast view of it. But look, guys, you know what the time entry does? The time entry sends time through to the employee record, and the employee record then records that time against the project so that you know what your costs are. What happens then? Diane hits the complete button, and bingo, up comes the service report, which is sent to the customer with signatures on it. Did she take any photographs from her phone? Yes, she did. There they are. We construct the service report to make it look like how you want it to look. We've got some templates, but we will make it look like you want it to look, and it can come in many different formats, including graphs. Now, why is that important? Why is it so important that it's easy to create the job, easy to schedule the job, easy to see where people are at, easy for your technicians to use the app, and then create these fantastic data-rich reports for your customers? It's important because when you send out the service report with your invoice, they're going to pay you straight away. And when they pay you, what do you get? You get, this is just a NetSuite standard report showing profitability. Here's your invoices. There's the time that you journal, that you spent in the field, now journaled, so it comes off the bottom line. There's an item that you had to supply to get the job done, and revenue minus costs equals profit. Isn't that right? And we do that all in NetSuite. So right now, if you have a field service business and you're using 2 or 3 different systems and you're guessing at what your profits are, that's ridiculous when you can do it directly inside of NetSuite automatically with no extra work. This just happens because it's built into NetSuite. Okay, so where have we gone today? We went from beautiful data-rich dashboard being fed by the mobile app. We've got simple screen to produce your jobs in, very simple, easy to use, even though it's complex. We've got a scheduler which allows you to drag and drop and see where everybody and everything is at, a mobile phone that's easy to use, and then these beautiful reports which come through to and finish with a fantastic profitability. Profitability to customer, profitability by job, profitability by region. So maybe, I think for a lot of people here, for the first time ever, you'll be able to see profitability on all of your field service activity in the one system with no API and everything built in. Okay, that's my 10 minutes. Sorry if I'm a little bit hyperactive there, but I do love the product. I'll just, how much time do I have, Corey?
That's it. Yeah, we're done.
Right. There we go. Okay, thank you very much for your time. We do have a raffle today. Corey, do you have the URL for that?
I'm sorry, I do not have the URL, but it is posted. It looks like Linda just posted it in the chat window. So the raffle is there. So Andrew, thank you so much for your lively presentation to help us wake up a little bit more this morning. And then also thank you to Next Technique for sponsoring our meeting. We really appreciate your support of the user group.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and take the presentation back. All right, here is the check-in code. Check-in code is winter. And then Andrew, if you could post your contact information in the chat window, there's somebody requesting that. And then there's also a question, Andrew, have you built any type of approvals for jobs? If you could post that into, I think that was for you, Andrew, if you could post that into, maybe that wasn't for you specifically.
That was for Andrew. I typed
okay.
that. Yeah, this is Lane Darwin.
Okay, yeah, Andrew, if you could go ahead and you could reply to Lane in the chat window, that'd be great. Thank you. So I'm going to leave the check-in code up for just another moment here, and then we'll get started with Alexis Matson from RSM on our main presentation today. So here is the check-in code one more time. Please make sure, and I'll go in. Oh, I'll post the check-in link in case you didn't get that in your email. There's the check-in link. Check-in code is winter. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move along, and I will give over the presentation to Alexis. And let's see, make Alexis presenter. And Alexis, you are welcome to take it away. And you're currently muted, Alexis.
Rookie mistake. Everyone can see my screen okay?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending this NetSuite user group meeting. Like Corey said, my name is Alexis Matson, and I am very excited to share with you how to customize roles, centers, and dashboards. I am honored to have been chosen to represent RSM today, as we are recently granted the 2021 Worldwide NetSuite Partner of the Year Award for the 7th year in a row. This presentation will discuss how to manage roles, including adding, updating, and overseeing permissions, creating custom centers, and building and managing dashboards. I will demonstrate how to create and update custom roles and their permissions, build custom centers with tabs, categories, and links, obtain real-time and actionable insight into your business, and finally, create smart dashboards to drive true operational insights. By the end of this presentation, I want for all of you to know how to update roles to give users the autonomy to complete their daily tasks, create custom centers that facilitate training and collaboration, tailor dashboards to user roles for immediate delivery of pertinent information, and I hope for you to understand general best practices and why they are considered best. I will start out by sharing how to create a custom role from a standard role and then update its permissions to expand that user's capabilities. Next, I will demonstrate how to create a custom center with custom tabs, categories, and links. After that, I will show how to add a custom tab to a standard classic interface. And then we will take a 10-minute break so everyone can return fresh-minded to walk through tailoring a dashboard for specifically an executive and an accountant. And then we will publish those dashboards to those roles. And then to ensure that we get through all of the content, I ask that you either hold on to your questions or put them in the chat, and I will address them all at the end. Let's kick things off with roles. A role, in a nutshell, is an access configuration defining what pages and records a user can see. There are a couple of best practices that I would like to note. First, standard NetSuite roles cannot be modified, but they do make excellent templates to create customized roles. It is much easier to customize a standard role than create a new role from scratch. Second, it is important to assign custom roles to users so you can make permission changes as needed. If you assign a standard role to a user, you cannot alter what that user can and cannot see within NetSuite. The standard roles can be thought of as existing as out-of-the-box NetSuite, only there to facilitate the creation of custom roles. And then lastly, it is recommended to grant the lowest level of permissions necessary for a user to complete their task. This is to maintain effective data governance. Permissions are assigned and removed from custom roles. NetSuite provides a large number of permissions that govern the data and interface that users can access. Role permissions are used to define usage of record types, tasks, and pages. Permissions are associated with roles, and then those roles are assigned to users who can be either employees, vendors, partners, or customers. When editing a custom role, there are 5 permission subtabs. Transactions, which will be all records and pages that hold transactional data. Reports, which shows all of the reports that are available within NetSuite. Permissions that are on the Lists subtab grant access to non-transactional data such as employee lists, customer lists, and vendor lists. Setup is where you manage general permissions such as granting a user access to a role through a mobile device or a single sign-on application. And then lastly, the Custom Records subtab is where you could grant access to custom records. Each user role, except for the administrator, must have at least one permission assigned to them. So in a nutshell, a permission is a bundle of rights that govern what a user can and can't do within the NetSuite environment. Each permission must have a level assigned to it. Most permissions have 4 levels to choose from: View, Create, Edit, or Full. With View, a user can see the data or record but cannot change it. With Create, you can also view the data, but now that user also has the ability to create a record or a transaction. The Edit level allows users to view, create, and also change a record or transaction. And lastly, the Full permission allows users to view, create, and then also delete a record or a transaction. It is important to note that some permissions do not give you a choice and only allow for one permission level to be selected. For example, if you are using the Suite Analytics Workbook module and you want to grant permission to a role to be able to access the workbooks, then you must assign the Suite Analytics Workbook permission. However, this permission only allows for an edit permission level. So there is no option to switch it to only view, create, or full. That can only be set to edit. On the other hand, transaction records such as sales orders will allow you to select which of the 4 levels you want the user to have. There are a few tips and tricks that I would like to highlight before moving into a demonstration within NetSuite. So first, copying roles is a great way to create a hierarchy of roles. For example, say you customize a standard salesperson role to make a custom salesperson role, and now you want to create a custom sales manager role to be their supervisor. If you navigate to the salesperson role, enter sales manager into the name field, click the drop-down arrow for save and select save as, you have created a duplicate role that you can now add additional permissions to. By doing this, you are ensuring that a supervisor has all of the same permissions of their subordinates, plus the additional permissions that a manager should possess. Next, the Show Role Differences page is useful to identify why some roles have the ability to access or edit records that another role does not. For example, I want to know why my AP analyst role has full access to all the accounts payable records, but my accountant role does not. I can select these 2 roles and compare them side by side and see a list of all the permission differences. This is a quick way to identify the permission that my accountant role is lacking to access the AP records. The last tip I want to point out is if you assign a role to yourself or another user and they're unable to see it in their role selection dropdown in the top right of their screen, it is likely due to two particular permissions that have been set on a role. On a role record, under the Permissions and Setup subtabs, if the SAML single sign-on and the Setup SAML single sign-on permissions have been added, this means that the role can only be accessed through a single sign-on portal. Additionally, if a user has been assigned to one or more other roles that do not have these two permissions assigned, then they will not be able to see that role. To fix this, if you are using a single sign-on portal, ensure that every role has these two permissions set. On the other hand, if you are not using a single sign-on portal, make sure these permissions are not added to any roles. However, there is a third scenario where you use a single sign-on tool for only some of your NetSuite users. You can make a copy of the role with the SAML permissions, remove those two permissions, and now you have a duplicate role, except the one without those two permissions you can assign to yourself for testing or other purposes. Either way, all roles that are assigned to a user need to be consistent in either having or not having these two permissions assigned. Now, I would like to jump into NetSuite and walk through editing role permissions. So the scenario that I will be demonstrating is there's a salesperson that requires access to view invoices. We will go into the role, add the invoice permission, and then set the permission level. So here we are in my NetSuite environment. Start off, navigate to Setup, Users and Roles, and Manage Roles. So we wanted to create a salesperson role. So I'm going to scroll down and find a salesperson. This is the standard role within NetSuite, and I'm going to go ahead and click Customize. I'm going to rename this to be the conference name so that once I save this, it will now become a custom role that I can assign to a user. But all of the transactions and reports and lists that are in the standard template are already there for me. I don't have to do anything or edit this role at all. We're going to go ahead and save this role. And I'm going to navigate to my employee record so that I can assign the role to myself. Now, under the Access tab is where I can say I want to assign this salesperson to myself. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Now, to view that, I am going to have to log out and then log back into NetSuite. Otherwise, I will not be able to see that role. So now I have that role right here for me to access and go into. And so this is where I want to be able to see invoices. So if I go to customers, transactions, any of these, I cannot see anything with invoices. So if I go back to my administrator role, navigate back to Setup, Users and Roles, Manage Roles, scroll down to that role we just created, this salesperson, edit the role, and now under the Transactions Permissions subtab, I am going to add Invoice. Now, the level that automatically defaults for Invoice is the View Permission level. I have the option to make it View, Create, Edit, or Full. At this time, I will leave it at View. I'm going to add that and save that. And now any changes you make to roles, you do have to log back out for them to activate and be able to be used. So I'm going to navigate back into that salesperson role. And we should be able to find invoices. around here somewhere. See, this is a great opportunity that I was going to jump into later. So I can go here and set my preferences because this is a different ribbon on the top of the screen that I'm used to. So if I navigate to set preferences by hovering over the little house, clicking set preferences, and going under the appearance sub-tab, I can scroll down and click use classic interface. Go ahead and save that. And now my ribbon at the top of the screen is familiar to me and I can navigate it a lot easier. So transactions, sales, and now I can see invoices here. Now that I have that permission assigned to my role. And now something else that I mentioned earlier in the presentation is that I created a supervisor role for a salesperson role. So if I navigate back to my manage roles page and I navigate back to this salesperson and I go ahead and edit that. If I add here at the end manager and I hit this little drop down arrow and go save as, I will have created, there's our salesperson, but now I also have the salesperson manager. So I'm going to go into this role and I'm going to, a lot of these are on view permissions. I want, or edit, since this is a manager, I'm going to give them full permissions for several of these. And now, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And if we want to see what are the differences now between the roles that is a regular salesperson and a salesperson manager, navigate to setup, users roles, show role differences page. So the base role that I want to compare against will be the salesperson, and I will compare it to the salesperson manager, and I'm going to come up here and click show. So now here, those few permission levels that I switched, I can see them pop up here as the differences between the two roles. That concludes what I wanted to show you for roles, so keep moving on. So centers are assigned to roles to grant users access to the necessary pages to do their jobs. A center is a configuration of NetSuite created for a group of roles with similar tasks. For example, all sales roles use the Sales Center by default. Before we jump fully into centers, I want to emphasize that the custom records feature must be enabled to customize centers. This can be turned on under the SuiteCloud subtab on the Enable Features page. The SuiteCloud terms of service must be agreed on to turn on this feature. There are 4 elements to centers, and they can be described by a hierarchy of broadest to most focused. Centers are the most overarching and can have tabs, categories, and links built into them. Following suit, tabs can have categories and links nested underneath them, and so on. It is important to note that if you are creating a custom center from scratch, you must create and add tabs, categories, and links to it. However, you do have another option. You can create custom tabs, categories, and links and add them onto standard centers. I will be walking through both processes later. A center determines which tabs and links are available for groups of similar user roles. Each center contains a handful of tabs, which are what appear on the ribbon at the top of a NetSuite environment. You can create custom centers and assign custom tabs to appear. Custom centers are intended to be designed for each type of user role. For example, there is a sales center, a warehouse shipping center, an executive center, and then many others. However, like you saw me do on the roles demonstration, it gets a little tough when everybody is looking at a different ribbon on the top of their screen. So normally, users that are in the executive roles would tend to be trained by consultants. And then those executives would be responsible to train their subordinates within the organization. It would be difficult for an executive to give direction to a user of a sales role that sees a completely different selection and layout of tabs. For this reason, we recommend assigning the classic interface to all roles. And that is exactly what you saw me do previously. Now, custom tabs can be added to either a standard or a custom center, and tabs are what are those boxes that are appearing across the top of the ribbon. Categories are shown on a tabs drop-down menu. Custom categories can be added underneath a custom tab. Categories cannot be clicked on to redirect you to a page, and links must be assigned to a category for the category to appear in the tab dropdown. Links are nested underneath categories. When links are clicked on, they will directly navigate you to a particular page. Some links, like the Enter Sales Orders example that I have open, have additional links shooting off of them. In this case, Enter Sales Orders is a link, and so are List and Search that are attached to it. Now I'm going to switch over to NetSuite again, where I will walk through creating a custom center. I'm going to create a basic custom center for an accounting role from scratch. This example, like I said, will be very simple for time's sake, and then also keep in mind that there is a standard accounting center. Now we are back in NetSuite. Navigate to the home page. So to start off by creating a custom center, you want to go to Customization, Centers and Tabs, Centers, and New. This is where you are going to create that overarching umbrella that is your center. And the only thing you do on the screen is give it a name. Now, I will not be giving this a name and saving the record because I have already done so in preparation for this walkthrough. So if I navigate back to Customization, Centers and Tabs and Centers, and I click here, I created this from that screen that we were just on, so it is only a name right now, and there is nothing nested underneath it. So I did this because I want for all of you to see what the center will look like after we create it. To do that, though, I had to assign the center to a role. But the nuance here is that because this is a custom center, I had to create a role from scratch in order to assign it. So in an effort to save time, I also created that role in advance as well. So let's jump into showing how to create this center. So your first action that you should take here is clicking on this new tab button. And this new tab button is what will create these up here. So we're going to go ahead and select New Tab. And this is where we are going to give it a label. And so I mentioned previously that this is going to be an accounting center. And this is just an example. I'm sure this is not quite what you would assign for a normal person. But we're going to label this first tab as Banking. The categories I'm going to put under it are going to be Write Checks, Make Deposits, Match Bank Data, Banking Import History. Those are our 4 categories that I want to show up in a drop-down right here. Now, rather than assigning a custom center to a custom role, you can come in here and specifically select a subsidiary that you want it to appear for, specific employees, departments, or customers. But at this point, I want it to be available for all roles to be selected. So we're going to go ahead and save that tab. And now I'm going to go Actions, New, to create another tab. I'm going to label this one as Purchases. And the categories that I want on the drop-down menu under Purchases are going to be Enter Purchase Orders, Receive Orders, Enter Vendor Return, Authorizations. Now we're going to go ahead and assign this to a particular center. So I want this to be on my accounting center that I am creating for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now we're going to do this a couple more times. So New, give this a label, do Payables. Select the center. The categories I want dropping down here are going to be Enter Bills, Approve Bills, and Pay Bills. Now, say I don't necessarily like the order of these categories. I can select one and hit Move Up, and it'll appear in the order that it shows here. Now, there's another sub-tab here for portlets. So if we go over here, I have the selection of any of these portlets to add here. So for this demonstration, I'm going to be adding the custom search portlet. And column is which column do I want of the screen for it to appear on. It'll be left, center, or right. And then do I want this to show up? Yes, I do. Go ahead and save that. We're going to go again, make one for customers. Label this as Accept Customer Payments. Issue Customer Refund. And Generate Statement. Let's move this guy up one so it appears in the order that we want. Let's assign a portlet. Let's do another custom search portlet. Let's do a quick search portlet. And let's also do a list portlet. Now I'm going to put my custom search in the middle, and I'm going to put my list over on the right. Enter value for center. Go ahead and save that.
Hey, Alexis, we have a question on, can you assign a new category like match bank data under an existing center, or do you have to create a custom center in order to add and change the portlets?
You're stealing my thunder. I will be showing how to do that later on. You can create a custom tab and add it onto a standard center. I can show that right now. So instead of picking this custom center that I have been, all of these other ones in here are the standard centers that I can add a custom tab under. So we will be labeling this one as financial. Throw a couple categories under it for make journal entries. Set up budgets. Let's add a couple of portlets. Do the analytics portlet. Let's do the key performance indicators portlet. Put that one in the center. And then let's do the KPI meter. Put that one on the right. do this a couple more times to get our center all put together. And then we can move on to setting links underneath the categories. For this one, we are going to have a financial category, and we are going to have a saved searches category. And then for the portlets, let's assign a key performance indicator portlet. And let's do a KPI meter. So now if I go to customization, centers and tabs, center tabs, I can see all of the tabs that I have just created. And if I click edit and I go into one of those, I can see all of the categories that I've just created. But now the next step that we want to take is adding links underneath the categories. So if I go under center categories, I can see it break out even further. So every category that I have added now shows up here. And so if I want to go under this write checks, this is where you establish your link. And NetSuite does it very conveniently. Either you can go here and look at a list, and alphabetical here for all of the different pages and records that are within NetSuite. Scroll down, select what you would like to see, or it's very intuitive and easy to just type it in. So I want write checks as the link, and I want the label to show the same thing as the link. I want it to say write checks. I'm going to go add and save. Now I want to move on to make deposits. Open that new tab.
Alexis, I'm sorry, I accidentally muted you. If you could unmute yourself real quick. Sorry.
I noticed that and I was like, oh, no worries. So here we are now in the make deposits category where we have to assign a link to it. And so the link is make deposits. And I'm going to have this label as new. Go ahead and save that. And this will continue on for a little while. So match bank data. And add that label, show the same thing as the link. And we're going to go into banking import history, which is the same title. We're going to go ahead and save that. Now, this tab, all of the categories have links assigned to them. So when I hover over a tab, all of these categories will show up and will have branches coming off of them for me to select. So if I go back to my categories and I go into now the first one for customers, I can close out of these ones. So now accept customer payments. There it is. Add that. Go ahead and save it. Generate statements. Go ahead and add that one. Now we're going to issue a customer refund. We're going to label this one as new. Now if I go back to my categories, if you've noticed, when I go to edit one of the categories, I can only see the 3 or 4 categories that I have assigned under a tab at the same time. So when I open up this one and I go edit the make journal entries, and I go make journal entries, label it as new, and when I click save, I will see now the 2 categories that are underneath the financial tab. So now I can go to set up budgets and do the same process. Add that, save it. Now that tab is done. We're moving on to our list tab. Want to see the accounts list. Label it as list. Go ahead and save. Do the same thing here with items. Put the link for the items list, and then customers. And vendors. Move on to the payables tab, where we can approve bills. Label this as approve. Can enter bills. Label this as new. You can pay bills. Mark this as pay. Now we have 2 more left. Let's go into purchases. New. Ah, I jumped the gun. Helps if you spell things correctly. There you go, save. Now, all of our tabs and categories have links assigned to them. So when I switch over to, oh, and I want to note one thing before I jump into the actual role with it, is that I did not assign any links under the financial and saved searches categories, because I want you to see how that looks if you do not go about assigning links. So if I hop into the role with this center, so right now I have it set on the classic interface, so set preferences, appearance, use classic interface, unmark that one, which is normally not recommended, but in this case, so now we can see I have banking, purchases, payables, customers, financials, lists, and reports. These are all the tabs that I created with the categories and all of the links underneath them. Now reports, if you remember, I did not assign any links to the categories. So even if you create categories, they will not show up underneath a tab on a drop-down menu unless you have links assigned to them. So as I would like to show, if I hop back into the administrator role, I would like to show you how you assign a custom center to a custom role. So if I go setup, users and roles, manage roles, I normally, how I said before, is the best way to create a custom role is to click this customize button, because as you saw when I did that, it replicated for me, so I could just rename it and not have to go through and manually assign all of the different permissions to that role. But when you do that, so if I want to click customize on this accountant, the center type is already set in line, so I cannot change it. So if you want to set a custom center to a custom role, then you have to create a new role from scratch. And here is where the drop-down menu is, so that I can scroll down and click the accounting center that we just created. But now I don't have anything in my permission, so I'm going to have to go through and add all those manually, which is why I did that before. All right, let's hop back into the presentation. So there are a handful of best practices for centers that I want to emphasize. First, a standard or a custom center must be assigned to a role upon its creation, because the center of an existing role cannot be changed once it is selected. That is what I just pointed out and showed you. On the other hand, although a standard or custom center is selected for each role, it is advised that the Use Classic Interface checkbox within the Set Preferences page and Appearances subtab is checked for each role. This way, when collaborating with either external consultants or internal coworkers, users have an easier time training, helping, and giving each other direction. The third thing on that list is it is recommended that custom tabs, categories, links, and scorecards are added to the Classic Center. This way, all users will see the same navigation to access records. Keep in mind with this that if a user does not have the necessary permissions assigned to their role, they may not see all of the tabs or categories and links that are nested beneath them. And then finally, in my personal experience, I have found that the most common use of customizing centers is adding a custom tab to the Classic Center. And that makes a common way that people use that is they'll make a tab for a specific custom set of reports that are not standard in NetSuite, so that they have an easier time accessing them if they are extremely pertinent to their business. And so that is what we will be doing now. So I will be showing you how to hop back in NetSuite, add a custom tab onto a standard center. So I did show this briefly before, but I'd like to follow through so you could completely see it. So in the administrator role, I have the Classic interface set. And so when I go customization, customs, and go center tabs new, and I am going to label this as, let's say, oversight. Say some executives want to see some metrics here. So assign this to the Classic Center, so I should see it up here. Categories, I'm going to have it be a financial category, and I'm going to have it as a list category, let's say, and we're going to save that. And now I am going to go ahead and edit these categories, and this is where I can assign a link to them. So under financial, let's say I want to see the income statement. Can add that. Let's say I want to see the balance sheet. Can add that. Let's add the cash flow statement and save this. And as you can see up here, this oversight tab is already populated for me. And I have financial now because I've added these links, and I will be able to see lists in this drop-down menu as soon as I assign links to that one. So I'm going to go ahead and edit link lists, and I'm going to add a customer. Where are you? Let's do vendor. There we go, vendors. Let's do employees. And let's add those two lists. So now that I've saved this, when I come under oversight, I now see lists and I have vendors and employees that I can click on. So if I click on financial and I click on income statement, I'll be brought down to the income statement. This is a much more common and recommended practice, as I mentioned before, much better than starting from scratch and creating an entirely new center. It is definitely recommended to create a custom tab and add it to the classic interface. All right, and that brings us up to our 10-minute break. So let's reconvene at 9:56 Mountain Time.
Alexis, do you want to maybe take a minute to answer some of the questions that have come up?
Oh,
so that they're a
absolutely.
little bit more relevant to the content you just covered?
Yes. Let's
If
put that break on hold for everyone then.
So there's, if we go back, says from Maureen, she said, I noticed you aren't entering a specific ID for the new tabs. Is there a reason for that?
No, there is not a particular reason for that. You can enter an ID if you would like to do so. If you want it to be, if you want it to match the custom tab name, then yes, I would recommend entering a specific ID. I did not, simply because it was a demonstration.
Okay. Also from Maureen, what does the shortlist do in those links? So when you were creating the links, there was one tab that, or one section that said shortlist.
Yeah, I was creating. And that was on.
It's on the links.
Oh. Let's go this way. Oh, the short list. So that is a checkbox that I'm not entirely sure what that one does. Let me get back to you on that one.
Yeah, we can take a look at it and maybe post the answer in the window here.
Yep.
During the break.
And
then,
then,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's another question from Tracy. Can you assign a new category like match bank data under an existing center, or do you have to create a custom center? Yes, so we answered that one already. That was a great question. Do you see any others that need to be answered?
Yeah, there was one more. I'm going to post it in the, because it was chatted just to the organizers. I'm going to post it here at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, so we have 10 offices, and we are trying to give permissions to managers that just see their office financials. Is there a way I can assign the individual offices? So I can give you a generalistic answer. To be able to answer that specifically, I would have to go into your particular NetSuite instance to take a look. I can show you though. So when you go set up users and roles and show both. So on an actual role, just look at this one. For subsidiaries, if you have each of your offices under different subsidiaries, you can select it there. Otherwise, you would do it on the actual employee record. So if I go onto my record and edit, this is where I can either set a subsidiary, or if you have a location, so all of your offices, this is where you could set that so they have only access to see what location they are at. This is another question. How do you add an existing tab to a standard center, such as the Analytics tab to the Accounting dashboard? So you cannot add tabs from other standard centers onto a different standard center, if that makes sense. So any standard center that you want to add to, you would have to create a custom tab. And you can replicate the standard tab just by looking at it and creating it the same way when you make the custom one. That was a good question, Trent.
There was a card from Yash asking about global permissions and if you're going to review those.
I had not planned on reviewing those in this PowerPoint.
We can talk about them during the open forum too, if that's the case. And then there's another one. Are you able to embed a website on a tab?
By a website, do you mean something outside of NetSuite? Then no. When you are doing a link, you can only link to pages and records that are within NetSuite.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Let's go ahead and go ahead with the 10-minute break. So I have...
Well, I hope everybody got the chance to move around a little bit. Let's go ahead and jump into dashboards.
One moment, there was a question that was missed earlier, right before the break. It
Sure.
was, how do you know what links are available? Is there a master list somewhere, or do you just click on that one link that's the drop down and see them all?
So that drop down where I click the double arrow and then the list button, that is every link that is available within NetSuite. And if you click on the top bar, a drop down comes out, and those are all of the different pages, and it's alphabetical so that you can click through and find what you're looking for.
Great, thank you. Are you going to be showing how you can add a link that is not in that drop down? So for instance, by just grabbing the URL or anything? Or are you not covering that in this presentation?
I was not covering that, but I can at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving to dashboards. So a dashboard can display real-time data, and it leverages off of saved searches and reports. They are a highly effective way to gain quick insights at a glance. The home dashboard is a view into your business and a tool to help drive the business. It serves as the landing page into your NetSuite account, and it is a repository of real-time data in configurable portlets. It can be personalized by role and by users to facilitate management of daily activities and oversight. There are numerous portlets that can be added to a dashboard to support daily functions. You can add a calendar to show activities, financial metrics, graphs showing sales by item over a specified period of time, reminders for tasks to be completed, trend graphs, and many others. There are 30 different types of portlets that you can add to a dashboard. However, based on my experience, these are the most used. So first, with custom search, you can display up to 6 of the custom search portlets on the home page. This portlet will show the results from a saved search. Next, you can display up to 3 KPI meters. This portlet will show a graphical meter of key performance indicator data. You must have a key performance indicators portlet set up because the choices of KPIs for a meter are limited to what the KPIs are that are shown in the key performance indicator portlet. The key performance indicators portlet shows key business metrics that are summarized from reports or saved searches for a specified date range. Within this portlet, you can also show comparisons between 2 different date ranges, such as this month last year versus this year. And you can also highlight results that do not meet thresholds that you define. For example, I could set the portlet to highlight COGS if it is higher than the previous year. Similarly, the KPI scorecard shows a comparison of selected key performance indicators. Next, you can display up to 5 trend graphs on your dashboard. These trend graphs can show up to 3 key performance indicators in a single graph with time as a variable along the x-axis. Moving on to reminders, this portlet shows pending tasks for an individual to complete. And then lastly, you can show up to 10 report snapshots. This portlet will display a graphical or a list summary of a standard or custom report. This portlet will also have links to view the underlying report. Now that we have discussed common portlets, I want to share how to publish a dashboard that you create. First, the user's role must have the published dashboard's permission assigned to them. Second, you must personalize either a single generic dashboard that will display for every user or create a handful of dashboards that are customized to a role. And then lastly, after you have finished adding portlets and setting them up, you can display that dashboard for users to see. So now we will move into NetSuite to walk through how to create and publish an accounting and executive dashboard. So I am going to start out by creating a dashboard design for an accounting role. Before I start though, I need to point out that you can only design and publish a dashboard to a role with the same center that you are currently in. So if I were to be in an accounting role, which I will be soon, I would have an accounting center established on my role. Therefore, I can only add or create published dashboards to other roles with accounting centers. So in my experience, the best way to go about this is copying the role that you want to make a dashboard for, adding the published dashboard's permission, and then going and creating that dashboard and publishing it. And then you can either delete the role when you're done or just leave it be and not have anyone but yourself assigned to it. This way, you are not granting users unnecessary access to edit the dashboard, and you don't want to risk forgetting to remove that permission. So if I go into Setup, Users and Roles, Manage Roles, I scroll down, I created a custom role that is a replicate of the standard accountant role and renamed it for this demonstration purpose. I'm going to go ahead and edit that, where I'm going to make it Publish Dashboards, just so I remember what role this is. I'm going to go ahead and save as. And now I can come into this new role that I created. And under the Setup tab, I can add Publish Dashboards. Oh, I already had it on there. And we can go ahead and save that. Now I need to add this role to my employee record. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. Access. I'm going to add this new role, publish dashboards, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now I'm going to log out and back in to that new role. So this is a general home screen that I may see. And I'm going to come up here and hit this personalize button, and I'm going to add a couple of things. So I'm going to add calendar so that an accountant can see what sort of meetings they have coming up. I'm going to add, I already have a reminders portlet out here, but that's a good one to have out there. I'm going to add a custom search. And a custom search, this is based off of a saved search. And anything else that I think I want to add, we can start with that. So custom search, we can go set up. And here is where I am going to pick from a drop down of saved searches that are available for me to choose. So I am going to scroll down to one that I know has some data in it for us to look at. So list of approvable transactions. I want my result size to be, let's say 10 instead of 5. For the drill down capabilities, either when I click on the hyperlink in the portlet, do I want to be brought to a new page, or do I want the portlet to show me that data that would be within the drill down? I'm going to leave this as to new page, and I'm going to go ahead and save this portlet. And now I see all of the transactions that can be approved right now. So next thing I want to show, personalize. Let's do another custom search and show you some other things that are available here. We can do open AP balances. Save that, and we'll have all of our AP balances popping up, and we can rearrange these portlets. So I have my calendar here on the side. I can set up my reminders portlet. And so all of these are available for me to display. So let's say I want to see bills to approve, bills to pay. Let's see, purchase bills, just add a couple on here. And we can, there we go. Go ahead and hit save. And now when I look at this portlet, I see that I only see 10 bills to pay, even though I selected quite a few to show up in this portlet. So I go back to setup, and I have 4 here. So I'm going to say show reminders with 0 amounts so that I can know for sure I'm not missing anything there. And another way to display this reminders portlet is I can move all of these up to the headline, and it will make the number more prominent. And I can also rearrange them by dragging. So now the numbers appear like this in the reminders portlet. Something else that might be useful for an accountant would be a bank reconciliation summary. Now, what's interesting about this is any role that has the reconciliation permission assigned to them will automatically see this portlet appear on their dashboard. So let's say I'm going to remove this shortcuts because I don't want it. I'm going to remove key indicators because it's not that important for an accountant to have. I'm going to remove this new release because it's not necessarily important to my business. I'm going to move reminders. Let's say I want to move reminders over here. Let's move reminders up maybe another one. So I have everything I need to do right at the top of my screen in the morning. Calendar, I can see things that maybe I have to do throughout the day. And now I like the look of this dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and publish it, which I can do because I have assigned the publish dashboards permission to this role. And that is why I see this hyperlink down here in the settings portlet. So I can go ahead and click publish dashboard. Now I'm going to give this dashboard a name. I'm going to call it the accounting dashboard. can give it an ID and say custom accounting dashboard. I can write notes in here and they will not be exposed to the people who are using the dashboard. It will be an internal note to myself. I'm going to skip that at this time. I have the option to lock shortcuts. So this is going to be anything that would be on this star dropdown. If I don't want users to be able to add new ones or remove them or edit them, move them around, I could click this box to lock shortcuts, which I will not do at this time. I also have the option to lock the new bar, which is this dropdown right here. So if I don't want users to be able to change any of these, then I can check that box. So now, like I mentioned before, the only roles that I can see here to assign this dashboard are roles that have the same center that I currently have, which would be the accounting dashboard. So I want to set it to show up for this accountant. I want it to show up for the accounting manager as well. And now I can hit the Apply To tabs, where I can either select Mark All so that it will apply to all of the dashboard tabs that are these, which are these up here at the top. I can unmark all, but since I'm only doing the home screen, I'm just going to check home. And now right here, I have the option for the mode of the dashboard. Either I can leave it in the unlocked state, so that means users can add new portlets, they can move portlets around, change what's going on, delete portlets. There's the locked mode, which means users can't change anything about their dashboard. They can't change how it looks, they can't add to it, they can't delete to it. And then there's the move add content. With this option, users, they can add new portlets to their dashboard that they find would be useful for them personally. They can move portlets around and change the look of it, but any portlets that you assign onto the dashboard, they cannot delete. So let's click that one. And we're going to go ahead and save that. So now I've published this dashboard to these two roles. So if I go into this other role, I will see this dashboard is now exactly how I made it on the last screen. So let's look at some questions quick. So after you publish a dashboard to multiple roles, can you please explain how to republish updates to the dashboard without overwriting individual users' dashboard personalizations? Sure. So when I go down to, I hit that little list button so that I could see all the dashboards that I have created, and I hit edit. I have the option here when I create a new dashboard if I want to override existing users' settings. So if I check this box, any personalization settings that a user already has in place in their NetSuite environment will be overridden by the dashboard that I created. However, if I leave it unchecked, all personalization that they have will remain intact. This is also important because if I do not check this box, it will not apply to any existing roles. It'll only apply to new roles that you create. And then the other question I saw in the chat.
Wait, Alexis, does
yes.
that mean that if you want to publish content that should go onto people's existing dashboards and they've made a customization, that it will not add that new content because it won't update those dashboards that have been modified?
Yes, that is correct.
So you can't do it. You can't republish updates to dashboards without overriding individual users' dashboard personalization. So you cannot do that. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then the other question I saw was, can you remove inactive bank accounts from the bank reconciliation on the dashboard? That I don't believe you can do that, is the short answer for that question. Okay, let's take a look at the executive dashboard. So I'm going to do the same process, except that you'll see a couple of different portlets in there that would be more applicable to someone in the executive role. So I'm going to hop back in my administrator role so I can create that proper role. So I have this executive role down here. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. And I'm going to add publish dashboards. Hop into my employee record and assign that to myself. Logging out and back in again so that I can access that role. Let's manage roles. Let's make sure I get that permission properly assigned on there. There it is, publish dashboards, save. Now I'm going to hop into publish dashboards role. So here is everything that automatically populates for an executive. So the key performance indicators will populate, and since they have the permission for the reconciliation portlet will populate automatically as well. Now, let's go ahead and add a couple of new portlets. Let's start out by adding, well, start here. Let's set up this key performance indicators portlet. So if you want to set up other portlets that have to do with KPIs, this portlet is important to set up first. Add standard KPIs. Let's just take a couple here. Let's say I want to see payables, sales, receivables, and let's do employees, inventory, new customers. So now that I've selected some key performance indicators, I can go ahead and select a range for each of them. So for payables, I want this set at today because I want to know what is my payable balance as of today. Sales, this is the time that I will show for all of those sales. So I can either have it as this month, this quarter, this half, this year. I'm going to keep it at this month. Receivables, I want to know again, what is my receivable balance as of today? I want to know my employees as of today, inventory as of today, and new customers. You can do that one as this month. And then you can go ahead and say, you will highlight it if it is, let's say, greater than a threshold of $10,000. And then you also can compare it to the same day of the last month. And I have the comparison, which is automatically checked. So sales, I want to highlight it if it is less than $2,000, because then we're suffering as a business. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. So this is where I can see all of my key performance indicators that have populated. Now, when I go up to the top and I want to create a KPI meter, I have the option to select any of the options that I had down in my key performance indicators. So this is showing from the same day last month, it was at over $450,000. But today, or excuse me, this is what it is at today, and the threshold that I set for it to highlight at is if it's over $10,000. So my estimation was a little off on that one, but that is what this is showing. But now I can show it as, so receivables. Now this one looks a little different. So this is going to show a comparison now. So for the same day last year was this 22.5, and now we're only at the 15. You can go ahead and look at a KPI scorecard. Set this one up. So for this one, I'm going to look at financial ratios. You have the option to restrict what financial ratios you want to see. So I want to see all because I'm trying to pick out something for an executive level. And then you can decide if you want to have the KPIs on the left or the dates on the left. I want to show a trend graph icon, and I also want to show the date row. So here are all the financial ratios of my KPI scorecard that have populated. Another fun one that you can put in here is the analytics. I'm going to go ahead and set this one up. So I want to show a pivot portlet, and this is something that I created, just a simple sales order pivot table from a workbook. And this will show me how my sales order amounts per each of my customer. And then at the top here, I can see my grand total of all of my sales orders added up. Can also throw in a report snapshot to look at. You can go set up. You have many to choose from here. I'm going to go ahead and pick invoices. You can default the chart type. So either you can do a line, a bar, or a column or a pie. I'm going to keep it as a column. You can have it set as of today. So I want to know what are my top 5 invoices in dollar amount as of today. You can either show it as a graph or as a list. And then display order, do you want it to be ascending or descending? And then you have the option to set a color. So now I can see my top 5 invoices. And so I'm liking how this looks mostly. I'm going to rearrange a tiny bit. I'm going to throw this one over here. I'm going to get rid of the new release. Move shortcuts. This looks decent enough. I want to publish this for all of my executive dashboards now. I'm going to name it Executive Dashboard. Name it Custom Executive Dashboard. I am not going to check either of these 2 boxes because I don't mind if other users want to add shortcuts or personalize this drop down either. I want to set this to this role. And I'm selecting yes, I want to override the existing user settings. Apply to tabs. I want this to apply to my home tab, and I want it locked. I don't want anybody touching it and moving it around. Go ahead and save that. So then when I go into my executive role, you can see this locked icon up here so people can know that it is not editable. And all of these tabs up here for personalization have now been removed. You can personalize this drop down though still. Go ahead and click personalize. And this is where you can check which you would like to include in your drop down menu. And they will appear in the order that they are in this list. So say I also want to include bills, but I want to see bills first. I'm going to move that one up to the top, either by dragging it or by using either of these buttons. And so when I hit save, I now have bill right at the top of my menu. And for shortcuts, you can establish these. Mine was set to analytics here. And that pretty much wraps up my content for that. Now, there were a couple of things that we wanted to swing back and talk about. The first of which was global preferences. I can pull back up my NetSuite. So if I hop back into an administrator role. So the global permissions, those are assigned in addition to permissions that would be on a role, except that global permissions are assigned directly onto an employee record. And the global permissions will always take precedent over whatever is set on a role. So you have to be careful there. So if I go to setup, company, enable features, the first thing you have to do would be check to see if it would be enabled. So under the employee sub-tab, I'd scroll down. And global permissions are not established here. So I can go ahead and check this box and save it. And now when I go into an employee record, I'll just type in my name. And I go under the access sub-tab. Now I have this new tab here for global permissions. And this is where I can select any permission and set something to it. So let's say I want to set accounts permission level. I can either set it as none. So no matter what role I'm assigned and no matter what permission is granted to the role, I will never be able to see the accounts list as if this is assigned this way. I can have it as view, create, edit, or full. And again, whatever you set here will override whatever role a user is assigned. Its purpose is that it can give an employee matching permissions. So if they're switching between roles often, that to do their daily functions, it doesn't necessarily matter what permissions are assigned to the roles that they are assigned. However, it is not recommended as a best practice. It is recommended that you manage all permissions on the role record. I hope that answers all questions in regards to that.
Alexis, can I point something out real quick? On the
Sure.
global permissions, there's also a publish dashboards global permission, and that's kind of a little bit of a trick or a tip to, if you are the person that's responsible for publishing dashboards, you don't have to create a separate publish dashboards role in that scenario. So then you would just have to have the actual role that you're publishing the dashboard to. You go and modify the role, and then you always have the publish dashboards available to you without creating a separate role for it. So that's just a little trick for dashboard publishing.
That is a great example of when this would come in handy.
And then I think there's another question in the chat window there.
I was just going to throw in one comment on that too. I've also seen the mobile access used in that global a lot, allowing global or mobile access to all their roles.
That would be another good purpose for it. it is advised against if you're trying to grant access to viewing records like an invoice. That's when it is frowned upon, and that's what should be managed on the role record. But overarching things like the two examples that you both brought up are great examples of when this would be useful. Now, Corey, what question were you looking at?
I'll go ahead and read it. It says, are there best practices for managing dashboard assignments and updates?
So there aren't necessarily best practices. It is a lot up to discretion. So a lot of what you feel like your users would find value in viewing and having access to see. So that's why I gave the examples of both the accounting dashboard as well as the executive dashboard, so you could get a feel that maybe executives don't need or want to see the same things that an accountant would want to see. So I guess that is technically a best practice of having dashboards be assigned to be useful to what people are doing.
Okay. And there's another question for document and file permission. If I give edit/full permission, is there a way to restrict only to edit full to things uploaded by that user?
That is something I would have to take a particular look in your instance for. I don't believe it would be easy like that to just set the level permission. I would say I'd have to look at your specific instance to be able to answer that fully for you.
Okay. And then, so Margie is asking about the permissions spreadsheet and how to determine what permissions are needed for what. Do you have that spreadsheet by any chance, Alexis? Or maybe Margie has it? We can.
I actually have it in my documents folder.
Oh, okay. Maybe we could bring that up and just discuss it for a little bit.
Sure. Let me pull that up right now.
And then Margie, during the afterwards, we might want to post your tip about how to find the right permission by going to the URL logged into the specific role.
So this spreadsheet is the NetSuite permissions usage spreadsheet. And so it lists every single permission that is available. So in the first column, it'll tell you which subtab it's under, and then the permission name, and then the usage description. And it's all here for you to view. And this can be found within Suite Answers. So I have not particularly used this spreadsheet yet to find permissions, just because I have been, in my experience, I just sort of kind of have an idea of what permissions would do what, but if I had to go about finding something, I would probably use Control F and type in some keywords that I think would be what I'm looking for and see what permissions could pop up that way.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned before, Alexis, best practice is to take a pre-existing role and copy that role and then modify those permissions from there. I mean, this might be useful if like you're going to create a brand new role from scratch, which
yes,
is a quite a task to say the least, to do that type of thing. Okay.
that would be quite a task.
And then, Janet has a question. She says, can you discuss the core permission a little bit? think that's related to the administrator core permissions, which is a relatively new feature.
Yes. So when you go under setup, users roles, manage roles. So let's just go under this account manager. So this is a new checkbox that they recently added, this core administration permissions. So if you check this box, it'll give you, or this role, basic permissions that an administrator would have, so that it overrides whatever you have down here and gives you a lot of additional preferences. You just have to check the box and it'll give you that. So, yeah.
I think, though, that checkbox makes it where you can't see personally identifiable information like social security numbers and things, though. I think that's the differentiator, right?
Yes. So it doesn't give you 100% of the administrator power or access within NetSuite. It cuts you off at little points like what you just mentioned.
Yeah, and other features such as close account. I think it removes that type of capability from there as well.
So this is Janet. So yeah, I was trying to understand it a little bit more. In our sandbox, you know, I've assigned and checked that box, and I don't really see or understand the difference. Having checked that box, there's quite a bit of, I guess, administration permission that I can see using the administrator role, but assigned to this role, I really don't see. So I guess I'm just not really understanding where that administration ability exists if I check that box under a specific role. Or is it like, for example, if they have the Safe Searches role, permission, would it mean that within the Safe Searches permission, it's become an administrative permission level? I guess I'm just a little unsure how it actually works, because I've checked that role, I've checked that checkbox, and I don't really see the administration permission fully. I don't know if I'm making sense.
So the first thing that could make it so that you're not quite seeing a difference when checking this box is if you have a lot of the proper permissions set down here. So, because then at that point, it wouldn't provide much of a difference checking that box. In your case, I feel like I'd have to actually look at the role that you're talking about to be able to point out exact things for you.
Hey, Janet, another suggestion, maybe you've already done this, but if you go to help in NetSuite and then you just search for the words core admin, they actually have a write-up, and it looks like they have a little video on what this permission is and the differences between it and the admin role.
And there's also a Suite Answers 82465. 82465, and there's a little video there too. Maybe it's the same video. Doesn't look like there's a lot of differences. I mean, it seems to only impact the searches, account administration with the employees and the contact records, which is kind of weird. I'd expect a lot more, like workflows and anything that an administrator could do. I don't know why. I don't know if this is a limited list and just an example in the Suite Answers. Maybe the help is more, explains it much more in depth.
Yeah, I think this was a new feature. I think it came in 2021.2, and I think in the release notes it might tell us as well. I thought this had to do with PII, protecting PII from admins.
Okay, so let's see if there's any other questions. Oh, there's a question from Mike. It says, can you discuss the Employee Center a bit?
The Employee Center. What about it?
I can say, so Employee Center is a role, you know, we use it quite a bit. So first off, you don't have to pay as much money for those licensees. But secondly, they are very restricted in what records you can access from them. Alexis, I don't know if you want to tie in more to that. I think the usual intention is for, like, you know, people doing like purchase requisitions. Oh, is it free? Sorry. Thanks, Margie.
Time entry.
Yeah, so that's it's another user license opposed to getting the full access user license, and it is free, and you have a lot less capability with it. But if you have someone who doesn't need that many permissions or that much functionality within NetSuite, it is a great option.
And one other thing to note on the Employee Center, you cannot publish dashboards to the Employee Center.
That's good to know.
Same thing as like the customer and vendor centers, where they're very, very limited because they're essentially free account access.
I think the question, if you have a full role, can you also be assigned Employee Center? You can. We've done that to just make it where you can have a consistent interface between people who are, again, like doing a time entry was one, or purchase requisitions. They all have the same interface, so it's easier to walk them through the phone.
Okay. Well, are there any other questions related to any of the content today? If not, we can go ahead and post the checkout code word. Let's see, I think we got all the questions there. And then if we have any follow-up questions, we can also talk about it in the open forum after the next piece of our presentation. So Alexis, thank you so much. It was a great presentation. I'm going to go ahead and take the screen sharing back, and I'm going to post the keyword, the checkout keyword. Let me get that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me and letting me present today.
Thank you. All right, just a moment here. Got to get this sharing correctly.
Is the checkout keyword just if you want the credits for this class?
Yep, for the CPE credits.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just 1 second. Oof, nope, wrong one. Okay, there we go. Checkout code keyword is season. And I will go ahead and post the link again in the window, the chat window, if anybody needs that again. Kenneth has another, yeah, Margie answered that. So I also point out, I think that most standard accounts will come with a bucket of 5 Employee Center licenses. There are some, if you need more, I think there is an upgrade fee for more than those 5. If you need more than that, definitely talk to your NetSuite account executive, and they can tell you the details around that.
Yeah, I always thought there were 5 for the price of 1, like of your standard user.
Right.
You could get 5 Employee Center, but several of you said it was free, so maybe they've changed the pricing on that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
I thought it was 5 for 1 too, something like that.
Yeah, you buy them in bundles of 5. You can't buy 1, you have to buy 5, but they cost 5 of them cost the same as 1 user.
But each account will typically come with 5 automatically.
There we go. Yeah, Lisa added it, so 5 included, and then after that it's 5 for 1. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so I'm gonna move on. I have another presentation to share here. last chance for the checkout code, which is season. And I'm going to stop sharing. Let me bring up my other slides here. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to give a quick overview of SuiteWorld 2021. This was the first SuiteWorld in 2 years, and it had been delayed several times due to the pandemic. And so it was kind of exciting to be there. I was very fortunate to attend. I'll just say that there were lots of people there. I don't know for sure the number, but I would say thousands. The keynote rooms were relatively full, and there were thousands of seats in those rooms. It was a great event, and it's really great to see all of the things that Oracle is doing to make this whole platform and everything a better system overall. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that they talked about in the keynotes, some features that are coming, and some of these things are available now. Some of these things are not available, and they're just things that NetSuite said are most likely coming. I think if they talk about them in the keynotes, they're typically not going to not follow through with those, but they won't necessarily tell you when if they're not available yet. So anyway, I'm gonna jump in here, and just these are basically the things that that they brought up during different keynote sessions and some of the sessions that I attended. One of the big things that they're talking about now is called Suite Banking. And so the Suite Banking is going to add automation to AR and AP processes. For example, there's a payment link option now where you can send a link on an invoice where your customers can pay with a credit card, and then ACH is also going to be supported. I don't think ACH is supported yet. As it is now, when you set up that payment link, there's a credit. You can set it up with a credit card processor so that your clients or customers can pay you directly through that payment link. It'll also support third-party payments such as PayPal. It'll automate creation and scheduling of invoices, and then you can also send payment reminders automatically through these AR automation things that are part of their suite banking module. And then as far as the AP automation piece goes, they're going to be building in automated invoice scanning. So if your vendors send you invoices like a PDF invoice, then the system will scan those invoices and create bills automatically. It'll also do automatic GL code assignment. There's three-way invoice matching as part of this process, and then also automating outbound payments. So those are some of the key features of the Suite Banking module that are coming up. There's a couple of other things that are part of this. Also, expense management. They're talking about this Suite Banking virtual payment card, so that basically if your employees have these virtual payment cards, expenses are captured and submitted automatically into NetSuite, which traditionally if your employees everybody has their own credit card and they're using those for expenses, it's a relatively manual process in general to get all of those expenses put into NetSuite. There are some systems out there, different credit cards that have Suite apps built into NetSuite that'll facilitate that. But NetSuite is talking about bringing this out and doing it on their own. Natalie, they did not say when these features will be released, and they also say every time before they talk about these features, they put up this legal slide that says these are all forward-looking statements. They may or may not come to fruition, basically. And so, unfortunately, we don't know for sure, but it's just to kind of get everybody excited about things that are coming up. They also will have a spend management capabilities, so you can validates spend and expenses against a budget, and then you can compare open purchase requests to budgets. Then they'll also have this global wallet, which is pretty cool if you have international banking requirements. And so the goal here is that you can have a single HSBC account, and you'll be able to accept, basically use that account for multiple international accounts. And I think they said something like 60 plus currencies will be supported through that global wallet capability. And then this automated bank reconciliation, they're working towards that every release. There's new automation coming with the match bank data. You can set up rules. There's new things that are coming and rolling out with that. So I think they're pretty invested in making all of these features, as automated as possible to help you automate your daily processes. Because I think that if you think about AR and AP processes, they're historically all very labor-intensive manual processes, and so NetSuite seems dedicated to making Oracle NetSuite seems dedicated to making these a lot smoother and automated for everyday use. So this was a pretty big announcement, the NetSuite Analytics Warehouse. And so I'll just read this real quick and then I'll talk about it. NetSuite's data warehouse, NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, is a pre-built cloud-based data warehouse and analytics solution that consolidates multiple sources of data, including NetSuite data, CSV files, and other business system data to drive actionable insights using the Oracle Analytics Cloud and powered by Oracle Autonomous Data Warehouse. Business users can easily build and run their own analysis without relying on it. So some of the systems that do this, and I don't have a lot of data analytics experience, but there are other systems like data warehouses such as Snowflake and some others that do a lot of this type of data analytics. And so this is one of the things that Oracle is injecting into the NetSuite ecosystem, where you'll be able to basically get all of this data from different sources and put it into universal information. And so these screenshots here are a couple of screenshots from actual NetSuite Analytics Warehouse dashboards. And so this is a pretty big deal. And the way that NetSuite described the analytics growth of a company, I guess, is you might go from using reports, and then you might use reports, and then you graduate to using save searches for all of your data, and then from there you might graduate to using Suite Analytics and analytics workbooks for a lot of data and analysis. And then the NetSuite Analytics Warehouse is at the top of that ladder, where you need more data than just what's in NetSuite, and you need to bring it all together. So it's a little bit of a stepping stone, and it's not going to necessarily be for every business, but medium to large size companies will probably need this type of feature and capability. NetSuite Analytics Warehouse is available now, and there are I think some NetSuite partners who are working on creating templates, pre-made templates in the analytics warehouse, so that you can start bringing in data and doing this, but it's all fully customizable as well, so that you can bring the data in and visualize it any way you want. So that's a pretty big deal. Next thing is this feature called My Account. And so if you've ever seen if you go to a website that's built on Suite Commerce or Suite Commerce Advanced, and you go to My Account, you see this really nice, clean user interface, where it's like you can see your purchases, you see if you have any credit card information stored in the system. You can view your order status, you can pay your invoices and everything in one place. So typically, or up until now, this has only been available for Suite Commerce and Suite Commerce Advanced websites, but they are going to make this out, they're going to make this available as an add-on, so that equals extra charges as an add-on, so that you can give your customers this capability to have a really nice view into whatever's going on. And typically that's been the customer center, which, as we just mentioned, is very limited. It's hard to make it look really nice. And so the My Account is basically a modern portal for your customers to be able to come in and see all of their information as it relates to their relationship with your company. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And again, this is an extra. This is not something that you can just enable. It's an extra bundle that you have to pay for to add onto your account. Okay, next thing is the NetSuite connector. So this is a pretty big deal. NetSuite connector has been out since earlier this year, but it is they're really talking about it. They're really starting to push it. And so there was a company called FarApp, and Oracle NetSuite purchased this company called FarApp, and FarApp had hundreds of connections to different platforms, but they had a very good core, well built out and mature integrations to various platforms. And so what NetSuite did is they said, okay, well, we're going to take all of that and kind of pare it down, and we're going to start with these offerings. So I think there's what, 10 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these 10 channels are what you can currently connect to through the NetSuite connector. So Amazon, Shopify, Walmart, eBay, WooCommerce, which is an e-commerce platform built on I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, it's an e-commerce platform. Yeah, thank you. Built onto WordPress. Yeah, sorry, that was a blank there. So WooCommerce is an e-commerce platform built on WordPress. BigCommerce and Shopify, they're two very big e-commerce platforms. Magento, also a big e-commerce platform. Amazon MCF, which is multi-channel fulfillment. So multi-channel fulfillment means that you can take an order from, like, say, your Shopify website, and if you have inventory in an Amazon warehouse that you sell via FBA, for example, Amazon can fulfill your Shopify order from their warehouse. So they call that multi-channel fulfillment. ShipStation is a shipping platform that ties into NetSuite. It's typically used for small up to medium size companies or small to medium shipping needs. There are some larger shipping platforms out there when your needs are quite a bit more. But ShipStation is a very popular shipping platform, especially for like e-commerce companies. And then Shopify POS, which is a point of sale system built on the Shopify platform. So I have more slides. So I took screenshots of the presentation at SuiteWorld, and that's why these images look a little fuzzy, I guess, because these are screenshots of their presentation from my cell phone. But I just thought it was really great information that I wanted to bring and share with everybody here. So basically, this is a comparison of the NetSuite connectors. So they have different versions, and those versions give you more capabilities as you go up the list here. Which, basically, your standard e-commerce needs are syncing orders, syncing coupons, sending fulfillment information back to the e-commerce website, and then sending price and quantity information to the website. Like, those are the core functions that you need for an e-commerce site. If you use NetSuite as your product information master record, then you can do this full product sync, which basically means you have titles, descriptions, feature bullets, images, all of that stuff stored on your item records in NetSuite, and then you can sync all of that to your e-commerce platforms. So that's kind of the next upgrade up. And so you can see as you go up the list here, you get more and more capabilities with these different e-commerce platforms. So these slides will be available on, we'll post them on the our user group post, so that you'll be able to access these later if you want to. And then they actually showed pricing for all of this, which I was a little bit shocked. And so I grabbed a screenshot of that. So this is the pricing for their different packages that they offer. And I'll point out that this pricing is per channel. So let's say, for example, you have 2 Shopify websites and you only wanted to do the starter level of those, those 4 different integration flows, then it would be $1,000 per Shopify site. So if you think about the price and you compare this to some other platforms that are out there, this is very, very good pricing. But I will also mention that I did see a quick demo of the back end of it, and it's pretty plain wrapper. So there's not much in the way of customization that you can currently do for these integrations. In some of the other iPaaS platforms, you can do a lot more customization, but for right now they've kind of blocked off all of that extra customization in the NetSuite connector. So they are calling it NetSuite connector, again formerly known as FAR app. So that's the pricing structure. And then they'll also add to this is that these prices, there may potentially be discounts available to these based on your NetSuite discount. I don't know the details around that. You'd have to talk to your NetSuite account rep on that. Then they have a couple of add-ons that you can add to the connector. There's a Save Search Export. You can do Amazon Seller Fulfilled Prime, Amazon FBA to NetSuite Inventory Adjustment to sync your inventory quantities between NetSuite and FBA. Excuse me, I had to cough for a second. Amazon FBA inbound shipping, and then Amazon multi-channel fulfillment inventory sync. So those are some different add-ons that are available. So I think that the NetSuite connectors, it's a pretty big deal, and NetSuite really expanding their capability to connect to external systems, and being able to do this with a NetSuite, Oracle NetSuite product is a pretty good thing. And I imagine that they'll expand on this over time. So they'll expand the offering in the different channels that they connect to. Okay, next thing is Smart Count. So this is a new feature. Don't know when it's going to be available, but it's going to be replacing cycle counts. And it's a new automated cycle counting solution that automatically triggers cycle counts based on events, stock levels, sales velocity thresholds, or on a schedule, and tally scans without impacting operations in the location. So one of the things about the current cycle count process is that you basically have to do it in a vacuum so that there's no transactions happening when you're doing the cycle counts. Otherwise, you can't like pick things off of the shelf and have operations going at the same time. One of the big things they're touting with the Smart Count is that you can use this, do your inventory counts during normal business operations. You can have stuff coming in and going out. And the Smart Counts will kind of let you do it midstream of everything else going on. But then there's a lot of these other features where you can automatically trigger this information, or trigger the Smart Counts based on the triggers that are listed here. So again, it's not sure when it's coming out, but I think it sounded like a really great thing, because the current cycle count process, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. Couple of updates to the project management module. They have this new invoice presentation templates. They help customers configure project invoices in the preferred format of the client with the level of detail that will enable timely payment of bills and improve cash flow. I saw some samples of these invoice presentation templates, and right now the invoices are basically limited. Like, what you can do with these are limited to what you are able to do with advanced PDF templates. But then also, as far as grouping expenses and time entries and purchases and purchase orders and all of that, there's a little bit of limited capabilities around that in NetSuite. If you're using the charge-based billing, there's some extra flexibility of how you're billing things, but these templates look really nice. They look really modern, and then they're customizable to fit your specific customer needs. So I just thought that was a pretty cool new thing that they're doing with project management. Then there's also this this kind of overarching concept of 360 dashboards. So 360 meaning a 360-degree view of what's happening around this this particular thing. So for example, customer 360 dashboard, they have if this is set up and running, you can go to a specific customer and you can see their lifetime value. You can see who your top customers are, and then you can set up customer specific metrics based on your business requirements. They're also applying this 360 concept to a cash 360 dashboard. So cash meaning your cash, like cash coming in, cash going out, like a 360 view of how all of that's happening. And then this also related to the project management is a project 360 dashboard. These are things that are not there yet. There is, what's the 360 that they have now? I think it's an item. There's a 360 on item records that you can set up and have. I don't know a lot of detail around that, but they're kind of starting to roll this 360 dashboard view out to all of these different areas of the system. So I'm sure there's going to be more to come on those in upcoming releases. Okay, so that's the end of my SuiteWorld highlights. If you get a chance to go to SuiteWorld next year, I highly recommend it. The networking opportunities are great, meeting and talking to other NetSuite users. You know, being able to go in and talk to the Suite app vendors directly, ask them direct questions, and then they also have the guru tables where you can go in and talk to a NetSuite expert about specific issues and areas related to a specific NetSuite module. So I highly recommend going if you get a chance to. All right. So next section, I'm going to talk about NetSuite 2021.2 highlights. Before I jump into this, I will start by saying there are probably things in the release notes that you think are really important or really cool that I may not talk about. For instance, if you're a developer, I have Mike cackling in the back of my mind, like thinking about all of the development stuff that's coming out. I'm not really going to talk about that kind of stuff because just basically I'm kind of thinking about the audience that we have here and what's going to be important to everybody there. My headset's about to die. I'm going to switch out my battery. Hang on just a second, please. All right, I'm back. Can somebody confirm that you can hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll jump into the highlights. So first of all, the preference to allow non-posting changes in closed periods by default. So NetSuite now includes a preference called allow non-GL changes is set by default to allow non-posting changes in closed periods by default. When set, NetSuite, that's a lot of repetitive default. NetSuite checks the allow non-GL changes box for each new accounting period you create. Accounting periods created before setting this preference will remain unchanged. So you can go in and set that or check that box that says allow non-GL changes in those previous accounting periods. But if you turn this preference on, any new accounting periods will have this defaulted to checked. In this release, you can also check or clear the Allow Non-GL Changes box on all accounting periods, including unlocked periods. To set this preference, go to Setup, Accounting Preferences in general. You know, I think that for some people, like this is a huge, kind of a big win to have this turned on by default because I think there are not many circumstances that I've encountered where the Allow Non-GL Changes is absolutely required to not be turned on. And so this is just a great feature that you don't have to worry about in the future. If somebody needs to make a non-GL impacting change to a transaction in a closed period, this just basically allows that moving forward. Next thing is support for new customer scheduled maintenance. So now you can now reschedule an increasing number of maintenance activities using the customer scheduled maintenance page, including certain routine maintenance and the account move to OCI, which is the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. In the last several years, I've noticed there are more and more administrative notifications saying your account will be down for 30 minutes on such and such night for account maintenance. And so basically Oracle NetSuite is doing these hot fixes. Instead of waiting for new releases, they're applying fixes and patches kind of through these scheduled maintenances. And so you can now say, I don't want to do it during this time period, but I do want to do it during this time period. So that's kind of a new thing that's coming up. That's pretty cool, or that's available now. Suite approvals enhancements. There's an addition of a project manager as an approver type. When creating an approval rule with a custom approval chain, you can select project manager from the approver type drop-down list. Supported record types for project-based approvals. Project managers can approve POs, expense reports, and vendor bills that are linked to projects. Historically, this has been a little bit challenging, having the project manager have the ability to approve the transactions that are related to the project that they are project manager of. And so this kind of enhances the suite approvals functionality to give you, project managers the ability to have oversight of the approvals for these transactions on projects. Automated cash application. So this is a new feature. I don't know if it's just something that needs to be enabled or if it's an add-on charge, but anyway, it's available now. So their description is you might import bank lines that do not have matching customer payments in NetSuite. The automated cash application feature enables you to automatically generate a batch of customer payments in NetSuite and apply them to open invoices. The generated customer payments are then automatically matched and cleared in the system. So, Mike Kackline, is this related to the cash application integration that Celigo offers? Do you know?
Yeah. This sounds like NetSuite's version of Celigo Cash App Manager. Yeah,
right.
Or maybe a little bit of Nolan Bankrec can do this also.
Yeah, exactly. So the comment I heard from somebody was that it seems like NetSuite's just taking all of what their Suite app ecosystem is doing and building it into their system. And I would say, yes, it does kind of seem like that's the case, but I would say 9 times out of 10 that those external Suite apps are also going to be a lot more flexible and functional and customizable than the built-in stuff that NetSuite does. But I think that it's pretty cool that they're adding these features and functions into the system as well. Thanks for that, Mike. New sandbox refresh options. Each sandbox account now has the option to be refreshed from either your production account or another sandbox account if you have more than one sandbox account, which is, I think, a long requested feature that they've recently released. Match bank data enhancements. So the bulk matching, the match bank data page now includes a select all box. This box lets you check or clear all the boxes for all items visible in the current page of the account transactions list. And then the bottom section in which selected items from the grids appear and the pop-up window for viewing matched or cleared transactions are now paginated. So you can find transactions with limited scrolling basically at this point instead of scrolling forever to find that needle in a haystack transaction that you're looking for. So there are some newly supported record types for CSV import. Whenever they say there's new supported record types, I always kind of do a face palm, like, really, that's it? So order reservations and sales channel, which are both relatively new record types in NetSuite, but what they still don't support are CSV imports of cash refunds, item receipts, and item fulfillments. And I'll say item fulfillments sort of, because there is an item fulfillment import page, but it's not in the standard CSV import area. Basically, you can import item fulfillments, but you can't do a CSV import to modify existing item fulfillments. So that's why I say sort of. So those are still, and there may be a couple of other records that I didn't put here that are still not supported, but to me, these are, it's kind of like, really? We can't import these records? Like, why? There must be some good reason for it, but anyway, I digress. Order reservations and sales channel are the new record types supported for CSV import. This is a huge one, changing item asset and COGS accounts. So NetSuite's description of this is due to account structure changes or errors in setting up inventory asset and COGS accounts. Cost accountants, or non-cost accountants for that matter, may need to modify these accounts for an item record. NetSuite now enables you to make these changes without affecting the item's historical transactions and existing reports. So the ramifications of this are significant because historically, if the inventory asset account or the cost of goods sold account on an item record needed to be changed for one reason or another, you couldn't do it, because unless you had all of the transactions that that item had been a part of historically in a period that is open. If it's in a period that was closed, you were not able to make the changes to those accounts. And so now, moving forward, you can change those. It will not go back and change the historical accounts or the historical transactions, but it will apply to all of the future transactions that that item is a part of. This is a significant, huge change. And Tracy says this is huge, and Dana says this is my favorite. So I agree. That's a very significant change and a really nice, refreshing thing to see that NetSuite did. Okay. Next thing, purchase to project. This is purchase to project version 1.0 is now available for installation from the Suite App Marketplace as a public and managed Suite app. So this is free, a free Suite app. This Suite app lets project managers create and manage purchase transactions related to projects and project tasks. It provides a unified project purchasing experience with insight into project purchases and single-click creation of purchase orders from the project or project task. So, really, I think the cool thing that I'm seeing a theme here is around, they've put some focus on their project management module and some of these additions that they've been doing. I feel like the project management module has been pretty stale for a few years and not a lot of improvements or changes to it. And so there's new stuff coming, and I think they're kind of dedicated to making their project management functionality better in the system. And so this is one of those add-ons that you can add to help that functionality. Oh no. Okay. Next thing. Suite Analytics workbooks. So there are 3 different things for Suite Analytics workbooks that I'm highlighting here. So first of all is data set linking. So data set linking, you can link data sets to analyze metrics from 2 different data sets in a single visualization based on a link that you define using common field data from each data set. Unlike joining record types, you can link data sets even if they are based on record types that do not have predefined common keys in the analytics data source. So this is one of those things that really makes Suite Analytics workbooks a lot more mature, because this is something you can't really do in other reporting tools in the system. Save searches, you can't do this. Reports, you definitely can't do this. And so this is just kind of like a little bit of a maturation along the Suite Analytics workbooks journey, I think. Another cool thing is the cached data in datasets. So in previous releases, data in datasets was loaded in real time whenever you accessed a dataset. The result of that is that you would load a dataset and you'd like sit there for 3 to 5 minutes waiting for it to pull up a dataset so you could start working on a workbook and paring it down and filtering it out. So with the cached data and data sets feature enabled, it is a feature you have to enable in your account, you can use cached response mode to load cached data in your data sets. The load time of your data sets and any workbooks or portlets that use the data set is improved when data is loaded from the cached data. If you're using Suite Analytics workbooks, just turn this on. Like this is going to make the use of the workbooks so much easier because all of the data is cached and it's going to pretty much load right away instead of having to load the whole data set every single time. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to turn this on unless you're not having a problem with waiting for the data sets to load, but I'd highly recommend turning this on. And then the last thing is the CSV export pivot tables. So in workbooks, you can now export your pivot tables as CSV files. Prior to this release, you could only export table views and charts as CSV files. Now the export option is available in all workbook visualizations, table views, charts, and pivot tables. This is a huge one. I think that the pivot tables are one of the best features of Suite Analytics workbooks, and now you can get them in a CSV format export so that you can take that data and slice and dice it in Excel if you want to. So I think that's also a pretty awesome improvement to the workbooks. All right, moving on. Let's see, is this my last one? I think this is, yep, this is my last one. Last one is inbound ASN automation. This is a pretty cool add-on or feature that can be, I think it's something you have to purchase as an add-on, not 100% sure. But the inbound advanced ship notice automation suite app automatically creates inbound shipment records from advanced ship notices received from your vendors. The suite app enables you to create and manage ASNs. ASN is advanced ship notice. You can import ASNs through CSV and web services. You can define tolerance limits for receiving item overages at the item, vendor, and company levels. You can set preferences to create purchase order and edit PO or purchase order to receive item overages. You can also approve or reject ASNs with item overages. Some of these features are really, really cool. The inbound ASN automation, I think, is a great addition to, you know, if you're doing a lot of purchasing, you do have a lot of items that you track or inventory that you receive and track in NetSuite. This can be a little bit of a bottleneck in your processes of getting your advanced ship notice information into NetSuite. So this is, I think, a pretty cool feature that they've come out with as well. So that is it for the highlights. Again, I apologize if you have a favorite that I didn't mention, but those were after perusing the release notes, everything that I came up with that I thought was noteworthy. So thank you all very much. And with that, we can move into our open forum section. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.